And so we're going to have to continue to try to pursue, as best we can, a political solution and in the interim, put as much pressure as we can on the parties to arrive at humanitarian safe spaces and ceasefires that at least alleviate the suffering that's on the ground. I recognize that that has not worked. And it is something that I continue to think about every day. And we continue to try to find some formula that would allow us to see that suffering end. But I think it's not surprising to you, because you study this deeply, that if you have a Syrian military that is committed to killing its people indiscriminately, as necessary, and it is supported by Russia that now have substantial military assets on the ground and are actively supporting that regime, and Iran actively supporting that regime. And we are supporting what has to be our number one national security priority. Which is going after ISIL both in Mosul and ultimately in Raqqa, so that the situation is not the same as it was in Libya. And obviously there are some who question the steps we took in Libya. I continue to believe that was the right thing to do, although, as I indicated before, in the aftermath of that campaign, I think the world community did not sufficiently support the need for some sort of security structures there, and now is a situation that we have to get back into a better place. I've given you last question is just in sync of Bloomberg. Question, thanks, Mr. President. I wanted to ask about two things that might be on your desk. Over the next couple months as you prepare for a Trump administration, One is at least 750,000 undocumented immigrants provided the federal government information about themselves and their families as part of your Deferred Action Program. I'm wondering if there's anything you can do to either reassure them or shield that information from the incoming Trump administration, considering his stance on immigration. And the second is, the administration and you have long maintained that the legal constraints upon you by Congress governing the movement of detainees from Gitmo are an unconstitutional infringement on your right as Commander-in-Chief. Considering that the gradual transfers that you've pursued are unlikely to continue under a Trump administration. Is this now the time to sort of test that theory by moving the detainees and see where the chips will lie? President Obama, those are both excellent questions. On the Deferred Action Program that we have known as DACA that relates to Dreamers who are currently benefiting from these provisions. I will urge the President-elect and the incoming administration to think. Long and hard before they are endangering that status of what for all practical purposes are American kids. These are kids who were brought here by their parents. They did nothing wrong. They've gone to school. They have pledged allegiance to the flag. Some of them have joined the military. They've enrolled in school. By definition. If they're part of this program, they are solid, wonderful young people of good character. And it is my strong belief that the majority of the American people would not want to see suddenly those kids have to start hiding again. And that's something that I will encourage the president-elect to look at. With respect to Guantanamo, it is true that I have not been able to close the darn thing because of the congressional restrictions that have been placed on us. What is also true is we have greatly reduced the population. You now have significantly less than 100 people there. There are some additional transfers that may be taking place over the next 2 months. There is a group of very dangerous people that we have strong evidence of. Having been guilty of committing terrorist acts against the United States. But because of the nature of the evidence, in some cases, that evidence being compromised. It's very difficult to put them before a typical Article 3 court. And that group has always been the biggest challenge for us. My strong belief and preference is that we would be much better off closing Gitmo. Moving them to a different facility that was clearly governed by U.S. jurisdiction. We'd do it a lot cheaper and just as safely. Congress disagrees with me, and I gather that the president-elect does, as well. We will continue to explore options for doing that. But keep in mind that it's not just a matter of what I'm willing to do. One of the things you discover about being president is that there are all these rules and norms and laws. And you got to pay attention to them. And the people who work for you are also subject to those rules and norms. And that's a piece of advice that I gave to the incoming president. I am very proud of the fact that we will, knock on wood, leave this administration without significant scandal. We've made mistakes, there have been screw ups, but I will put the ethics of this administration. And our track record in terms of just abiding by the rules and norms. And keeping trust with the American people. I will put this administration against any administration in history. And the reason is because, frankly, we listen to the lawyers. And we had a strong White House counsel's office. We had a strong ethics office. We had people. In every agency whose job it was to remind people, this is how you're supposed to do things. It doesn't mean everybody always did everything exactly the way it's supposed to, because we got 2 million people working in the federal government, if you're including the military. And so we had to just try to institutionalize this as much as we could. And that takes a lot of work. And one of my suggestions to the incoming president is that he take that part of the job seriously, as well. Again, you wouldn't know this if you were listening to some news outlets. Or some members of oversight committees in Congress. But if you actually look at the facts, it works. And this is just one example of the numerous ways in which the federal government is much better today than it was, without people really knowing. You look at VA. People remember the legitimate problems that were publicized in Phoenix. It was scandalous what happened. What people don't remember is that we brought in well over 1 million people who are getting benefits that weren't getting it before. Driven the backlog for disability benefits way down, cut homelessness in half. Just made the agency work better, not work perfect, but work better. And one of the mottos I always had with my staff was, better is good. Perfect is unattainable. Better is possible. And so we will try to share the lessons that we've learned. Over these last 8 years with the incoming president. And my hope is he makes things better. And if he does, we'll all benefit from it. All right? Thank you, everybody. You guys, some of you who are traveling. You'll get a chance to ask more questions. All right? Thank you. Barack Obama. Post G7 conference presser. Delivered June 8, 2015, Elmau Briefing Center, Kron, Germany. Good afternoon. Let me begin by once again thanking Chancellor Merkel and the people of Bavaria and Germany for their extraordinary hospitality here at the G7. My stay here has been extraordinary. I wish I could stay longer. And one of the pleasures of being president is scouting out places that you want to come back to. Where you don't have to spend all your time in a conference room. The setting is breathtaking. Our German friends have been absolutely wonderful. And the success of this summit is a tribute to their outstanding work. The G7 represents some of the largest economies in the world. but in our G7 partners, the United States also embraces some of our strongest allies and closest friends in the world. So, even as we work to promote the growth that creates jobs and opportunity, we're also here to stand up for the fundamental principles that we share as democracies, for freedom, for peace. For the right of nations and peoples to decide their own destiny, for universal human rights and the dignity of every human being. And I'm pleased that here in Krun, we showed that on the most pressing global challenges. America and our allies stand united. We agree that the best way to sustain the global economic recovery is by focusing on jobs and growth. That's what I'm focused on in the United States. On Friday, we learned that our economy created another 280,000 jobs in May, the strongest month of the year. So far, and more than 3 million new jobs over the past year, nearly the fastest pace in over a decade. We've now seen 5 straight years of private sector job growth. 12. Six million new jobs created, the longest streak on record. The unemployment rate is near its lowest level in 7 years. Wages for American workers continue to rise. And since I took office, the United States has cut our deficit by 2/3. So, in the global economy, America is a major source of strength. At the same time, we recognize that the global economy, while growing, is still not performing at its full potential, and we agreed on a number of necessary steps. Here in Europe, we support efforts to find a path that enables Greece to carry out key reforms and return to growth within a strong, stable, and growing Eurozone. I updated my partners on our effort with Congress to pass Trade Promotion Authority. So we can move ahead with TPP in the Asia-Pacific region. And TTIP here in Europe, agreements with high standards to protect workers, public safety, and the environment.